we're here again at the Bleecker Social Club. It's your boy Hootie. I got a very special guest who I've spoken to many times. I have a great deal of respect for. From the life to the legitimate world to now hopefully becoming friends, besides being online friends. The one and only. I mean, he needs no introduction. The man, the incredible Larry Mazza.
Thank you once again. The introduction is incredible, and the respect is mutual. You know that.
Oh, I appreciate that, Larry.
I appreciate being invited. I love being invited and talking about some good stuff. And you tend to not only focus on the negative, the life, the killings, and the stuff that we lived through. That was a nightmare. I like that you talk about other things, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, that's why you're practically my favorite guest, and I've had invites from everybody because I know there was more to you than just that. Right. But at the time, when I heard about you in the streets, it was Joe College pulling the trigger. And that's why your story was always so amazing to me. And I was like, fuck, that's why I knew so much about you from the streets. And as you know, I was with one of the most powerful captains in the Gambino family. People can say what they want. Everybody knows that. He's been on every night I've been on. And so we were getting it firsthand. And regardless, the crew that took care of Joey Scopo, the crew that did this, the crew that did that, your crew was the crew. Bottom line, we know that means you've talked about this many times. Killing active consigliere, future consigliere changed the war. I know that whole whisper from a certain person go, take out Joey Scopo, the war will end. That ended the war. But what turned the war was the hit that you guys did on the consigliere, future consigliere, active consigliere at the time in the middle of Brooklyn. But what I like about you is I can go into the parts that I want to help people with, how they know guys like you who were Joe College, and I don't mean that in a bad way, because because as I know, as anybody else that knows you and read your book, just as I just finished it maybe a couple of weeks ago, love the inscription. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
That you yourself was on your way down the legitimate road to be a civil service worker with $150,000 a year retirement plan.
Right. Yeah, and not only that, I would have. I always had the aspirations to move up in any life I was in, any job I took. So in the fire department, if I would have went that way, I would have moved up the ladder to get some kind of stripes, either captain or chief. My father said I could have easily been a chief with my head, the brains I was lucky to have, to be born with. I just didn't apply them the right way.
And coming from an Italian family, how often do we get a compliment from our fathers?
Yeah. No, I got to tell you, my father was very supportive. Obviously, he was, upset of what happened to me and how deep I had gotten. And a lot of that didn't come out until I was in court. And he really saw how deeply entrenched I was. And it hurt him in different ways. But you know what? I did my 10 years, came home. Him and my mother and the rest of my family were a pillar of support. Just an unbelievable backing to get back in life and redo it. Let's start over. And that's what I did.
I love that. I mean, I'm trying that now with downtown Manhattan. I'm trying to see if the Italians can take it back a little bit, if they're looking to put in that hard work and get the bakeries going and get the stores going.
Yeah.
It's hard. We got our third store going downtown. And I love Little Italy. I love Lower Manhattan. It's where my mother's family came from.
Yep.
So I'm big with that. And you know what? Lucky my father was an old school Sicilian. He really didn't know what I was involved. I mean, of course, he probably knew I was involved in rackets. I never had a job. Legitimately that I was at 9 to 5. But he supported me as a human being with the best he can until he passed away. And he never had to see any of it, thank God.
Right.
But there's a lot of things that I want to get into with you today. And your book, like I said, I was hearing a lot on my end. And we were always discussing, sitting around the social club when this war was going on. And I was a teenager in the 90s, that how hasn't Scarpa clipped these guys? The guy's just a maniac. Like he'd drive around by himself or find a local kid to drive him around to shoot people. Like he didn't trust anybody. But Larry, and regardless, I know I read the situation. Well, that would make me think he'd want to get rid of you more, because if anybody in the life ever found out what was going on, he and you could get clipped. So that would make it even more that he would want to clip you. But
Yeah.
for some reason, you and Jimmy, he stood by you guys, and he didn't stand
Well,
by
you
anybody.
know, we earned our loyalty. We earned the loyalty he felt with us. You know, he knew we'd never turn on him. And at a very young age, like I said, he told me that we had to keep it secret. And I, for the most part, did. I say that because, you know, Jimmy knew.
Right.
You know, he knew because he worked with me at Danzas. So he knew exactly who I was seeing. And then when it all came out, he knew. But he was closed-mouthed about it too, obviously. And in some ways, it created a bond between me and Greg that was made it stronger than ever. It's a little bit. There's two sides to that.
Yeah.
And you know, he knew I was good to his family. I was good to his son. I was good to his daughter, his youngest. I'm talking about. I was tight with Greg Jr. I still am. You know, I'm tight with his daughter Debbie, his oldest daughter. I'm tight with Buddy, his other son.
Other side, buddy,
Yeah. So you know, we were very much family. You know, and you know, just the way it ended, you can't believe how close we all were. But the ending is just something that is just impossible to swallow. And, you know, you say forgive and forget. I try to forget it. I don't think I could ever forgive. I try to forgive it, but I don't think I could ever forget. You know what I mean? I try to. It works both ways.
You try both. That, Larry. You can't forgive or forget. It's either.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's one. It's very hard. It's very hard. You know, now.
What bothers me about that, not to cut you off, is Greg Jr. going to jail. I think that was the one person he should have never put in jail.
Well, you know, Greg, like myself, or not angels by no means, and doing some time, okay, you pay the piper. But for him what they put him through was not fair at all because of the father. The father should have been the head of the indictment. The father should have got the 33 years. Gregory should have got an underling, but it didn't. He stood up like a trooper.
He did.
But the ending there, too, was bad because when he made the deathbed confession, the old man, he could have made it a little easier on, you know, Jimmy, myself, and Greg Jr., and he didn't. He didn't do anything.
Me. Not to change your thought, because I want you to get back to that thought. Because I never got to speak to you about this, and I'm hoping to get Greg Jr. on Monday. Maybe you can connect us too.
Well, you know, let me just tell you about Greg Jr. Right now, he's got to stay. He's not looking to get in the public eye. He wants to settle in. He doesn't want the government thinking he's got any agenda. He doesn't want the Colombo family to think he has an agenda. He's living like he was just released or just born again. You know, he's in a quiet spot. And but you know, someday I think he has the right to tell his story when the time is right.
But this is from my understanding from guys in the feds with him in legitimate places, not I don't know what's called the protection. I'm not familiar.
Yeah, whatever the units are. Yeah,
in regular units, he wasn't in one.
No.
He did his time. He did his time like a man. He did it with gangsters. He did it with tough guys. He did it with killers. And he was a tough kid.
Right. And the day they tried to kill the old man, they took a little something out of the Godfather. They tried to kill him too that same day in prison because they knew if they got the father, it's in the book. If he got the father,
I read that. Can we talk about that? I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that.
Well, you know why you can because you know there's things I don't talk. You know, Ralph Scopo's dead, Joe Scopo's dead. There's nobody that's gonna have any problems from it. But yeah, they went to Ralph Scopo and they paid this black guy $10,000 to cut Gregory's throat that day. But as he approached him, somebody saw it happening, and like you just said, Gregory was well liked, and respected, and somebody alerted Gregory. He turned around in time, so he got it in the shoulder, and then I think one in the side, but he survived. They shipped the other guy out. He was a lifer anyway, and but yeah, they tried to get them both the same day. So
now, I read this incredible list. Mob Star is my favorite organized crime book. Now, out of respect for my father, I never watched Italian American movies besides The Godfather, Goodfellas, Casino, until he passed. Well,
Right.
until I left the life. Let's not say he passed. Until I decided I wanted to, because out of respect for him, he hated the life. He explained the Sicilian background to me, the peasant background, where we came from, and it was nothing like that. The local mobster was a barber, and he ran the town. And the story that goes back with Mussolini when he visits Sicily, which put a target on the mafia's back, because we can say the mafia because it was Sicilian. Mafia, Cosa Nostra, Omerta. These are Sicilian words that nobody should be saying outside of Sicilian fraction. But that's a story for another day. And when he gets to the town, Mussolini, and the local mobster turns around to him and says, no, you don't need security. Here you're under my protection. Nothing could ever happen to you. And that put a target on their back. And my father hated that. So
Right.
respect for him. I read Mobster while I was away when I was doing my 5. And Jerry Capisi, I don't call nobody an expert. Like I said, how can anybody be an expert on what you, Jimmy, and Craig were doing? Not even you three could be an expert because you don't know what Craig and Jimmy were doing when they left you. I call people historians. Nobody's an expert because nobody was there. Now, even me, now I was with a skipper, an active skipper, and 2 wise guys, and me and a hitter. That was our crew. Whatever we did together is all I can tell you. I can't tell you what happened outside of that. So I would never consider anybody an expert. But your book is second to none, the second best book that I've read besides Mobster.
Yeah, that's saying a lot.
Everything got both sides of the story. The FBI, UK, the street side. So it's one of my favorite books.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's a great compliment, and it's true. You can't. I said it right in the book. I'm not a historian. I may have some dates wrong. Guy might have been in a different prison that I said. My points were what they were, and I think that's why sometimes books like that are better. You're hearing it from the horse's mouth, not a historian.
Right.
And I prefer that, any day. But the other thing you got to realize too, in the life we came from, everybody likes each other to some extent. Like it doesn't trickle down. By the time the story comes down from the top to us, it's what the underboss wants the captains to hear, what the captain wants the soldier to hear, and down below. And then when we're at the bottom making money, we're not always telling the truth about how much we made. So it works both ways. Becomes lying is part of it. Well, psychology.
If Joe Messina decides to come out with a book, he can never tell you because he had no idea what his underboss, his brother-in-law, Cy Vitale, was doing the whole time. This guy was clipping guys like he owned a funeral home. You know what I mean? And I bring it down. You think now there was guys, if they made a score or they made money, they kicked up 70% and kept 30 because they wanted their names to be known. No. I kicked nothing. I put work in. I did what I was asked by some of the bosses of the family, high-ranking captains, and that's the way I repaid for my streets. I didn't need the life. I was already in the streets at 18. I was doing my thing. I was asked to come into this thing of ours. And my whole thing with you was you were also the same because you were brought in by Linda. She introduced you to Scarpa to bring you into the life. It wasn't something that you wanted to, even though you grew up in the neighborhood with it around you, you didn't want to be into the life. I
never gave it any thought. Never gave it any thought. I had a whole different road ahead of me, But I was young enough to make the mistake and believe in certain things. But we, a lot of us learned the hard way. And, it couldn't happen again at my age, and with the wisdom I have now, if that's the right word, the experiences I have,
the one thing
never happen again.
You always had the wisdom. It was the romance. The romance always gets us.
Yeah. But again, at 17, 18.
You were pretty smart young on reading the book.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was, but the street smarts and common sense are all different things, but no, I not, it's definitely take the responsibility. But it was a foolish move at a young age. It is what it is.
Listen, you took the responsibility with a high-ranking, actually, the guy's probably an acting boss by now, on a compound. And I didn't even know that you were considered bad while you were on that compound. I thought they would have put you in custody.
No.
Once I was in a regular jail when you decided to change your life.
Walking the track with that man every day and he was just turned his stomach what the life had become because of guys like Greg. And he just, he never looked at me the bad way. Again, but you're not supposed to talk to these people at all. So I broke the rule, but it's a.
Nobody,
I did it in a way that I can live with myself. There was nothing new to give them. You know what I say? I wish I knew where Hoffa was buried. I would have got no time, but I didn't.
Everybody knows Hoffa was buried, and the guy's body will never be found because it was in there. Right. But that's a different story.
Yeah.
My whole point is, you were so commended for what you did that you were able to walk a yard. Now that's unheard of. I jumped a global plea, and I can't tell you how many problems I had. You were able to walk the yard. What you did with some power. And I got it right now in New York City.
And I got to tell you, I was treated with not a drop less respect, but I always respected everybody too. It was mutual. You had to carry yourself a certain way in prison. None of the prisons were low-level prisons, I can tell you that. Some supermaxes, whatever. This final one wasn't. It was a medium. Yazoo, Mississippi.
Yazoo.
And, what a... well, you never seen bigger mosquitoes in my life. But, yeah, it was horrible. But, listen, I was able to jog. I was playing softball. I was playing handball, working out, I was training.
Always known to be a fitness guy. I mean,
yeah, I still do. I had some nice, classes I was doing, a toned down version of martial arts because they didn't accept that. They wouldn't let you do it. So we did movements with our hands open, but, it was actually punches, and kicks and things like that. But, keeping myself in shape was very important because I was a trainer, personal trainer licensed. I came out, I was able to get a couple of good jobs in different places, not high paying jobs, but good jobs in gyms. I was able to develop a clientele. Within 3 years, as soon as my probation was up, I bought my own gym. I didn't buy my own gym. I built my own gym. What happened was
felonies. This is what being a convicted felon.
Yeah. I rented a spot, the first one, and with money I saved up, a little help from my family, I started buying equipment. And I was on my feet from 6 in the morning till 8 at night, training people, doing classes, and my gym just kept growing and growing. After about 10 years of that, and starting to do real well, my wife Kelly retired from where she was working as a VP and wanted to do something more fun. So she started doing weddings, being a wedding planner, which led to opening up a florist shop as the base. The florist shop turned into a wine and cheese bar, which had a great atmosphere. A lot of girls used to come in there. They would hang out at the flowers. And so I didn't mind hanging out there. And then ultimately it got so crowded when we brought in some music, we needed a bigger place. Then we got a regular liquor license, and it became a supper club. So for about 5 years we did that, and as good as it was, as much fun, and financially it wasn't really as great as all the hours you have to put in. So we sold it, and now I'm back at the gym full time. But it's sort of a great segue because it keeps me in shape for the next part. Now I'm getting more and more into TV and stuff. And Kelly's actually managing. She's a manager now for a lot of accounts that we're bringing to my producer. So, we have shows coming out in the next month or so. Next time we're on, it's going to be a phenomenal show because I'll be able to talk about all of them. But the first show is coming out in June. My show, I have one, maybe 2 shows, and I'm going to be hosting both of them, all while the life is in the works with Nick Pileggi and Terry Winter. Yeah. I mean, that's,
I want you back on in mid-June, Larry. I want you back on talking about, this might be one of Nick Pileggi's last projects, and it's
Yeah, he's 88. It could be, but that's why we have Terry involved also. He's also doing the Mob Cops and a team of writers. They told me already I will be in the writers' room. I think that was very important, but, when you hear names like Nick Pileggi and Terry Winter, I can't I'm sorry.
Oh, don't worry about it.
I can't. Let me shut this off. I can't demand that.
We all just got smartphones. I mean, none of
Yeah,
us know what we're doing with them.
I don't even know how to work these things.
Yeah.
I can't demand that. But I thought it was a good idea, and eventually they came back and said that's elementary. You're going to be in that room because I read even the Irishman script, the parts that I was reading for, they took things that I said and changed and used my own words, like in a few different parts. Well, more than a few, several different parts. Same thing when I played the corrupt cop. I told the producer Kevin, I said, Kevin, there's no way this would be the wording. I said, let me say it my way. At the end of it, even the other producers came over and said, thank God you saved that whole scene. You know, really, really nice compliments. But so anyway, this it's going to be a platform. He's going to have his own platform, so he's going to need lots of. He's going, he has a lot of licensing already for old movies, but he's going to do a lot of original stuff. And like I said, the Mob Cops for Life, a few others that are in the works. So it's really exciting. And this summer, it's all starting. So.
I'm looking to go down and
Next time I'm on, once he tells me I could put out, the marketing stuff they're working on and flash it up and the sizzle pieces and things like that. I can't wait. So
beautiful.
You'll be one of the first.
Not to get off subject, talking about phones, but one of your pictures, you're actually in a nice suit talking on a payphone.
Yeah. Yep. You know what?
That's who we're used to.
That's a historical picture. And
Great.
I use a word Michael Madsen said. He said when I told him about the scene in Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah.
You remember that scene where he was dancing, cutting the cop's hair off and everything? He said that scene's going to be on my tombstone. So I think I'm going to put that picture of me on the phone on the tombstone.
It's historic because it brings me back to like when I got my first smartphone in 2016. I'm just like, the payphone days. Like, I mean, it's going to be in my book. I would put $20 in quarters in the payphone so they wouldn't take the payphone away. Like the payphone was making money. Towards the end, when they were doing payphones and I was calling Costa Rica to get my figures, and I needed a payphone. I was, the throwaways are a good thing, but payphone, So it's really funny because when you say that, I go back to the picture of you sitting there with the payphone in your hand, stretched out with the suit on.
And there's a funny picture of De Niro in The Irishman. He's on the phone also, and he's holding it the same way. And somebody made a comment that they put it up on Facebook, and they says, Larry, you taught him how to hold a phone too, because it was exactly the same.
Well, Larry, listen, we got you telling them about the car going around the block in Little Italy, that it would never happen. Mm-hmm. We got you telling them the way the hit went down. We got you telling them about the guys that were on the hit.
Right.
You know what I mean? And Scorsese himself agreeing with you.
But he knows who did it. He went to school with the guy who did it.
Yeah, one of them, right?
Yeah. Right.
We know how many guys are there. We know the guys that did it, and they put it down as just one single guy doing it. But
with two guns, while he's got bodyguards, and this is Crazy Joe Gallo.
Crazy Joe Gallo. Got two guns himself.
Right.
He found two guns
during wartime, during the war.
Right. Alberto's in the middle of the with a Colombo social club around the corner.
Right. Yeah. No, it was crazy. So, but yeah.
You gave it to them, and they said, listen, out of respect, I mean, you could say what they say to you.
Yeah. No, they said they wanted to follow the book verbatim. That was their script. They call it their Bible. Yeah. So they had to go by it, but that's okay. But other shows, and like when I played that spot and I told De Niro I had the part and I played, he said, did they let you be yourself? Did they let you ad-lib? Because they let me do that on The Irishman when I was reading. They wanted me to do that. So he says, that was very good. Then it'll come off as real. And he was impressed. Everybody that saw the little clip was impressed. I don't know if you ever saw it.
Yeah, no. I seen the movie. I don't know.
No, The Perfect Murder. The Perfect Murder, where I was behind. I had a big.
Oh no, I didn't see that.
Oh yeah, I'll send it to you.
I'll get on that today. Because all jokes aside, Larry, if I put a poster up as an older gentleman from Brooklyn, and wherever you are today in America, you got to get this everywhere. Oh, you're a New Yorker. You are a Brooklyn guy. Forget about a Brooklyn boy. You got the accent. I'm an Ozone Park kid from East New York, but you got the Bensonhurst, Bay Ridge, You can't get rid of it. I mean, it's you.
Yeah.
It's like I
Oh,
put
that's
the
funny.
child up of a grown man, and you're like, if I'm going to report to a captain, I'm reporting to you. Like if I walked in a place and they were like, "There's a guy there," you'll know when you see him. I'm walking over you saying, "Buddy, what do we got to do?" And you're like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not the guy, pal." And I'll be honest, Larry, everything, all jokes aside, there was a scene, there's a picture where you're wearing a fedora, but you look like a G-man, not a wise guy. And I'm like,
Really?
wow, he looks out of place.
Well, that's the old fashioned.
Like a wise guy.
That's from the 50s. That's why.
Yeah, no, but you look, but even from the 50s, you didn't look like a 50s wise.
Yeah.
You didn't look like the Larry
Yeah.
guy that all these, like I said, reputation only until me and you spoke. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
And we would talk. Now, you know better than anybody, right? There's a means to an end. So we, not knowing what Scarpa was doing at the time, and also this is the mid to late 90s now, where everything's coming to an end. We didn't find out about Mississippi burning. We didn't find about the FBI agent on the take. We didn't find out about how, these guys had nothing, how he was winning the war. How did that happen? These guys had all the money. They had Queens behind them. They had the Gambino family behind them. How is it happening? But in a lot of situations, Scarpa, in a wise guy's mentality is, I got to get rid of Larry one day. And since Jimmy knows, he's got to go too. Because regardless that you've had an understanding, there's got to be a means to an end because of you being with Linda. And that's the way wise guys think. No matter what kind of loyalty, in that life, it's your best friend that takes you out. And he's got to be thinking, one day, this is how wise guys think. I got to take this guy out. I can't, there's no way that I can let this go on for 30 years, 20 years with this secret in this guy's mind. That's how wise guys think, Larry. You know that better than anybody. You've been around them.
That's a very valid point. There's a lot of, I can't deny, it's like, here's what I say. Here's an example I'll give. You're right. It's a very good point. Okay. I never thought it would happen. But you take Junior Persico. There's an argument that he should have stepped down.
Oh.
Okay, now, and I tell people, that's a very good opinion. It may even be right, but it's not the rule.
Right.
He doesn't have to step down, and he didn't step down.
He's the boss. He makes the rules.
And the reason I'm so strong on that is Greg made it clear to me: this life is not a democracy. Okay, it's a dictatorship. So until he says himself, "I'm done," I want to put in a successor. He's the boss.
Well, you know better than anybody.
So, but there's a good. So what you just said, it's a great argument, but to me, again, especially at that time, it would almost be like killing the son.
It has anything to do with his deathbed confession that he fingers you. That was something, because I think if Greg don't get the HIV, if he doesn't get diagnosed with the HIV, which was HIV, because you die of AIDS, when he gets diagnosed with the HIV, he says, "Fuck it." I think if he don't get the HIV, he's got to take you and Jimmy out.
Well, again, I
just know the rules. Let's just think. Yeah, how wise guys think.
Yeah, but don't forget, he broke every rule.
Yeah,
he didn't live by rules. So, Dad, he was selling drugs.
Well, he's robbing drug corners, so no one can put a beat in.
Then he started selling them. They started becoming the wholesaler. So so all the rules were being broken. So it's hard to say he killed for that. But here's what somebody did say. Somebody close to me said that he might not have wanted me to go on with Linda alone. That might have not looked good down the road.
Right.
Because who knows if we would have left it.
This is another point of why.
That's a possibility. Yeah.
Right. This is just rules of Cosa Nostra. Because there's one thing that I was taught when I came in, and I was around it my whole life, but when I was in between 17 and 18, and I was grabbed by my ear, and from Fat Andy to Ronnie One Arm to the boss sitting on the tree panel at the time when they restructured the family 12 times. Nobody's bigger than the life. It's a communist life.
Yeah,
the life is communist.
Exactly. Dictated, exactly.
Rich, poor, and the middle are hitters. The hitters are always broke. I mean, that's how it was always explained.
Yeah.
Communism. Rich, poor, meaning you got your associates answer to your soldiers kick up to the captain, and your captain kicks up to the underboss who turns it into the boss. Now, we spoke about this, the boss's man, who goes directly to the boss, answers him, and turns the money in. But my whole point is nobody was ever bigger than the life. Therefore, I was always thinking, even reading the book now, after you sent it to me, like, again, thank you, and the description was beautiful, that I always thought, even reading it, saying, wow, maybe the deathbed confession was his way of whacking Jimmy and fucking Larry.
Could be. I mean, again, those are. It's a strong opinion. It's a good opinion. It's a possibility. I'll never know for sure, but he did it to his own son too. I mean, why not help your own son?
And I'm gonna tell you, a few Gambino guys told me while they were away doing big time. They're home now, older gentlemen. They had a lot of respect for Greg Jr., the Gambino family.
Yeah.
Even though they were rooting for the other side, not because of Vic, because they would have got rid of Vic. You know that. If they win, Vic goes the boss. John Cena finally becomes Capo to Tutti Capo, and because he was never announced Capo to Tutti Capo because Lucchese, Colombo, and Genovese.
And the Chin would never allow it.
Yeah, and the Chin had more respect than Tony Salerno, and that's one of the biggest bosses. So, but
Greg, he had a lot of.
And him giving the promise to Joe Messina if he becomes boss to rename the family, which is a story for another episode. He got, three, they outweigh, right? Stalemate. And Lucchese and Genovese, they got to, sway. Are we going to go to war with the three families or we're not? Now, my question to you is, yes, Carlo, who was, and I only speak to him, and added a life where you'll never even get me to be back in any crime organization again, which I think Cosa Nostra was the best, that drugs, kill and die was Don Carlo, Capo, who was a real Capo to Tutti Capo. The Colombo family, because, as we know, Persico did wrong by figuring Ralph Scopo as boss during the Windows case, which was the commission case, and put him away for life as well as himself. He could have been left out of that. Now, was there a rule in the Colombo family, deal and die?
Yeah, there was. As far as I know, it was all the families.
Because Carlo's word was born. I mean,
it was supposed to be all families. But it just goes back to all the rules again that are being broken. So we're not supposed to get involved in that, and we know so many guys were. We're not supposed to take over the family, okay? Vic was told that rule when he sat down. John Gotti was told that rule when he sat down at the table that night when they brought him in. They all heard that rule, yet they went and took over, killed the boss.
That's why, even though you were on the weaker side, you were on the right side. Regardless that I have a great deal of respect for Joe Scopo Sr. I mean, like I said, besides John Sr. and Jeannie, he was a god in my neighborhood. He was a god. But Vic was wrong.
Yeah. And one mistake. We were weaker. We were outnumbered.
Yes.
Okay?
You're outmoneyed.
And we were outmoneyed. But they had 120 guys, maybe 25 shooters. We had 40 guys, 40 shooters. So that balanced it out. I remember Greg saying that. Yeah. Numbers don't mean anything.
You guys had the gun, meaning
everybody on
You said that everybody was ready to shoot.
And none more than Greg, and then obviously me and Jimmy being loyal to him.
Right. And a lot of the tough guys stood neutral, like Sonny Francis was neutral at the time. Even though he was on the Persico side, stood out of the war.
Stood out. Yeah, a lot of guys did. A lot of guys left town.
That guy had 100 guys by himself.
Yeah.
He could have made
absolutely.
He could have made family. Sonny Francis could have made a 6 family, Larry.
Yeah, of course.
He could have with his hand. on the phone book and said, everybody in Long Island's with me.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
so.
But they didn't know how long he was going to be on the street.
Yeah, he was
That's
never
the problem. Always in and out, in and not. He was in more than out, so that would have been tough.
He was the first wise guy I ever met in my life, 1983.
Well, that's legendary. That's something.
Never forget it.
Yeah.
He was on the lam, and he still came in with 20 guys at a funeral. Funny as shit. And Little Italy, funny as shit.
Yeah. He's something.
Yeah. So now, you know, being who you were, was protection ever offered to you? Because I mean, Larry, you got the Green Reaper. I mean, you were giving them solid, not even forget about information. You had solid storytelling. Forget it. I'm like, listen, you tell a story, you write a book, we're all no good. You make a podcast, we're all no good. Now, cooperating against our friends, hurting our family, that's a rat scumbag. What Greg Scarpa did was a rat scumbag. Now your own son makes you a piece of shit rat scumbag. And you're dying of AIDS. Who gives a fuck? You know what I mean? To put you, Jimmy, and him, you know, throw everybody else under the bus. Nah, those guys were flunkies. They drove me around. Could have said any of that. But he was a piece of shit rat. That's a fucking rat. And that's what aggravates me more than anything. Now, where you going in with your story, whatever it is, how weren't you put somewhere in a lull, in a camp, that where you'd be protected? How did they get to you?
At the very beginning, I was in protective custody units or whatever they're called. I never went into the witness protection program, but they had to watch where they put me. You know, where I wasn't known, I was quiet, everything. Once I got towards the middle and I was done, with all the trials and shit like that, then I just signed the paper, says leave me alone, because I was more concerned. I was more in fear of the FBI than I was because of what the information I gave than I was of the old guys in the neighborhood.
Because
I was more worried. More worried about them sending me to Wyoming. Okay, I get hunting accidents from one of them. Who's going to ever know?
Right.
At least being home with my family, if something happens, they're going to know.
Because of Levecki or something, right? Because of agent.
Yeah.
Which you got a story coming out soon about that. I can't wait to read that.
Yeah, well, that'll be part of it. That'll be in there. I don't know.
Is that going to be a short? Is that going to be a miniseries? If you don't mind me asking.
No, I really don't know about that one. I don't know what the plan is on that, but it's going to be part of my book, part of my story anyway.
He's doing documentaries. This guy, I see this everywhere.
Yeah. No, he's out there. He's you talk about that's 100 times worse than anything any of us do, because he was supposedly with a badge, a real badge. Right. But son, hey, I just heard one that was really great. I never heard it before, and he says, if you don't become a criminal because the government will take you as competition.
Oh, shit. Well,
think about that.
Is it organized crime? Not all criminals, correct?
Well, yeah, I would say organized crime more like us. That's more them. But the point is, they're pretty bad themselves.
They're pretty bad themselves. There's some badass. Right. I'm scared to death. I'm not gonna lie to you. They scared the shit out. I'm not scared of anybody on the streets. I walk my neighborhood. I walk Bensonhurst. I walk 86th Street. I walk anywhere. The feds scare me more than anybody. Like you said, I could be walking down the street. I get hit with a rock that fell off a building. Who the fuck knows? Yeah. You know what I mean?
No, I agree. That's why I says I didn't feel I needed. I just let me go on. Just leave me alone.
Okay,
and
so
they did.
That was your
that's why I wound up in Yazoo.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I met a few guys, heavy hitters. They were with you, and they had no problem with what you did. I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, they can't come out publicly.
I understand.
But I was liked by a lot of older gentlemen. I was a social club guy. I was a drug guy, to be honest with you. So they knew they could talk to me. We could talk. And people knew that if Hootie asked about a story, it was okay to tell Hootie a story. You know, most guys that ask stories get clipped. What is this guy asking questions for? But they always knew I was a guy that, not infatuated, but I loved the way the dynamics of this life worked because it was bigger than me. I was a peasant. My father was a peasant. He was nothing. I wanted to be part of this life. You know what I mean? And it was great. And it's something that's bigger than me. And I never thought anything was bigger than me. So I wanted to know about it. I wanted to know the inner workings. I spoke to guys that were 80 years old that told me when Russell Buffalino and Angelo Bruno came to New York and asked permission to the 5 families to hit Howard. Right. They were the only 2 that knew about it. And I spoke to a guy that was part of that meeting. I was 12. That guy was 80. He's probably 190 by now. Like, I love that. You know what I mean? And I spoke to, you were with a powerhouse. I'm not going to lie. And powerhouse was on his way home to take over a family. And some guys are dead that you were with. Like, this is why, like, I'm so connected to you. There was a lot of guys. I was with Frankie Blue Eyes before I knew Frankie Blue Eyes was big.
Right.
And Frankie Blue Eyes was a stone cold killer in himself. Yeah. And for him to tell me about your crew, and I was getting the hold down on the inside tip before any of this, you know, I asked Frankie Blue Eyes about everybody in the Colombo family, because no disrespect, but we thought of you guys like as the street gang of the mafia. Because that's the way you guys ran. These guys ran around. Greg Starr was robbing drug corners, weed spots. The guy was sticking up weed spots. Like, you know what I mean? Like what a gang member would do.
There was nothing he wouldn't do.
Right.
There's nothing he wouldn't do. Right.
I would be in Frankie Blue Eyes.
Bank robberies, like, anything.
Like came in helicopter.
Hey, listen, if I going back to, I run into guys occasionally, you know, and we talk very amicably. I won't mention anybody that's alive. If they die, I'll mention them.
Yeah.
I ran into one of Wild Bill's guys downtown Brooklyn.
Okay.
And he stood on his side of the bar. I stood on my side of the bar. And he knows who I was. I know who he was. There's no doubt. And just left it at that. You know, nobody said anything. You know, I see some guys that are still use the word active, but they're not really. They're on the outskirts.
Everybody's half-ass active.
So yeah, if along the way, if you got guys that have mentioned me that are not around anymore, you can mention it. If they're still in the street, obviously you can't mention their names.
Well, but I'm going to tell you that I walked into Aqueduct Racetrack because everybody knows me. I'm a horse guy. I like the racetrack. I grew up on the racetrack. I love guys. I can tell you most of the guys that became bosses. You know what I mean? That on the racetrack. Because people understand how you're with this boss. You know, growing up on Aqueduct Racetrack, you're going to run into everybody from all 5 places. And living in Howard Beach, all bosses at one time owned a house from Ozone Park to Howard Beach. You know what I mean? At one time. And I'm going to tell you, active guys never had a word to say bad about. If you have guys that are not active, they don't even talk because they got their own problem. No. I speak and I post notes from an active Banano powerhouse who writes me and says, Hootie, you know, you never mention nobody. I mean, this name, I could go on and on. I know I'm a young guy, but as you can tell when we talk, you see the things that I know from years ago. I can go on and on and on, that things that go back to the 50s and 60s, and I don't. Because it's not what my podcast is about. It's about positivity. I don't need to talk about guys or the life or things that I know and how it was structured 12 times. And I'm telling you that there's a powerhouse right now that's in position or making a position himself a boss that didn't have something to say bad about you.
Well, you know, there's always going to be somebody, right?
Oh, well, look, come on. They're all, listen, people, I've been a dope fiend, a pillhead, a junkie, a lowlife.
Yeah, you can't please everybody.
But go read my indictments. There's never been anybody under my indictment under a powerful captain. I don't give a fuck what any of them say. And I'll walk to my neighborhood, write down 100, and nobody will come forward that was ever a real name. It's all phony names that make this stuff up. Let somebody come forward with a powerhouse name and say, I'm so-and-so, and Hootie's this guy. They don't have it. And like I said, never, one of my favorite guests are you. Love that. I wouldn't even call you a guest. Hopefully I can call you a friend one day. Mm-hmm. Powerful story. Love the book. It was amazing. I wish I would have picked it up sooner and read it before we got to speak on one of our first conversations.
Yeah.
Real powerhouse. I mean, Larry, I got a big question for you. And I usually do a Hootie's thought, but this is going to be a Larry question. Now, you've been at the Mob Museum. Wow. You know, you speak very well, very intellectual, very intelligent. I mean, you can see that if you got an education. Only an imbecile would not see that. So what's more fearful? What's more harder? What was more the hump to come over? Pulling the trigger or public speaking?
No, pulling the trigger.
Really? The first time or in general?
Yeah. Well, first time.
Because you had a big hit in that.
Yeah. Well, don't forget now. The early on ones were tough. Okay. Once the war started, then it was it was kill or be killed, and it was easy. I hate to say that, but before that, it was tougher. Speaking, I was always a pretty good speaker. I could write well. I got an A in college in writing, so I know I could articulate. And plus, I had always been in front of classes. Don't forget, I might have had 30 people in my kickboxing classes or even my boot camp classes. So I was up there talking to them, explaining to them how to do things. So I sort of was okay with that. The Mob Museum was a little tougher because of the scenario and all those people and, more professional. But, listen, and for most guys, I would like to think that isn't easy. And if it is, that's part of the reason the life went down the tubes. If it's too easy to kill. Well, but like I said, during the war is a different ballgame, whole different story.
A lot of people don't know this, but your mother's side of the family, my opinion, I go with the old school. Your uncle was a powerhouse future consigliere of the Colombo family. And you got word about an active future consigliere of the family that you pulled the trigger on in the middle of Brooklyn in broad daylight. Was that a hard pull?
No, that's what I'm talking about. That guy he just put a word out that he was going to kill me if I didn't come over to the other side. So he made himself the number one target. So if he would have just shut up.
It was a little bit harder than that one.
He should have kept his mouth shut and did what he wanted to do. Maybe I'd be gone now. But once he alerted us, he became number one. We were going to pitch a tent on Avenue. I was going to sleep in the tree.
Oh, Daylight Avenue. Everybody heard about that. Right.
Yeah. No.
Didn't know at the time if it was yous or another hunt, because you guys called yourselves hunting teams at the time.
Yeah, we were hunting.
Knowing this being in the streets, you guys were hunters. And they would call it, we're going out hunting today. We're going out hunting tonight. Get ready.
It was open season. It was open season.
Oh, yeah, it was open season until the war was over.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
So now, your first hit, were you straightened out?
No, it came way late. I didn't get straightened out till the end of the war.
I mean, I thought it was in the middle of the war, so it was like not that much.
Yeah, I mean, it was it was after Mickey Black hit. And there was a big meeting we had at the Meadowlands. And at that meeting, Greg had said that we need to name a boss. We need to put our administration back together and approach the other families. We have to let them know that we're a family and this is it. So at that meeting, Joe T was officially voted in our acting boss. Jojo Russo was officially voted in underboss. Richie Fusco was now made the acting consigliere because Carmine was ready to go on the land. Greg was elevated to official captain for the first time in his career because after that meeting, and they took Jimmy and I downstairs, and that's where we got our button.
Straightened out.
And the reason is that Greg was the captain was because he didn't want to lose us. So they had to put us under a captain.
Gotcha.
So then he took the captain spot so we would continue to answer direct to him. So now we were still under him. And it came from Junior Persico himself because we were in all the meetings. Okay, tradition has certain meetings where only good fellows could be at. But there's not a good fellow in the room that didn't want to stand.
Right.
Okay?
Even not having a button at the time.
Right, because what we were doing during the war, who were you to tell us? I mean, you want us there. Right. So we were sitting at the table, we were at all these meetings, and for tradition's sake and rules, again, a message was sent to Junior through his brother Teddy, and it came back.
Guess those Senior, not the son.
Teddy Senior.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I got pinched Easter Sunday or Palm Sunday or something, right?
What's that?
When I got pinched at St. Patrick Cathedral on Sunday or something.
Yep. That's due to Carmine Sessa. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he told his brother bring a message back to Joe, who was going to be the acting boss eventually once we voted him in. Get those two guys recognized. That was his words. So right after that meeting, we went downstairs. It was a restaurant, and I tell people it's almost, I don't want to say comical because of the way the world goes. We couldn't prick the finger because Greg was sitting there and everybody knew he had AIDS.
Right.
Nowadays, I wonder if they have to wear a mask at the ceremony.
You know what?
Think about it.
I'm going to touch on that. I have a guy, and I'm going to.
You can't kiss. We had to hold hands. We hold hands. That unbreakable chain.
Yeah.
You can't do that now with COVID.
You're right.
So how do guys get,
Well, let me ask you a question. You know this better than anybody. You got a cop in the family, you can't be straightened out. Some families won't even straighten out a guy if your brother was a homosexual or his sister was a homosexual.
Right.
How did Greg get bumped up to captain with HIV? It's
I don't think
had to do.
At that point it didn't matter. It didn't matter. He was practically the boss.
Well, yeah, I know they actually named him acting boss at one point.
Right. When he was sitting when he was sitting with Joe T at the table, and Joe T was the acting boss, they were still all listening to Greg. He was at that point he was the eldest statesman on our side, the oldest guy, the toughest guy by far. They respected him, feared him.
Yeah.
So I don't think that came into play. I don't think it mattered that he, but they certainly don't want to spread it. I can tell you that. So.
I mean, I appreciate you coming on. I can't wait to have dinner with you and your lovely wife when you come.
We're going to do that.
I really want to redo this in the summer when you get the other thing going so we can talk about it.
I look forward to that.
Now, you remember the Roy DeMeo era, am I correct? You remember what they were doing and everything that was going on?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think, Roy DeMeo, Greg Scarpa? How do you think?
Well, I can only tell you one experience I had. I was sitting there when it happened. First of all, bringing a guy into your club, whacking him is one thing. Chopping him up is a whole different thing. The people, the public, other people, a lot of guys in the life just frowned at that. Like, you don't need to do that. I mean, it's a whole nother level. It's like Tommy Karate. He did a lot of that. These guys are more like serial killers.
Yeah.
Okay? I had a guy that owed me money. And Greg Jr. and I went, and we didn't hurt him, but we let him know the next time we come in, we're going to hurt you. So he runs to Roy. Roy comes to the club on 13th Avenue. He sits down, and I was sitting there because it was my money.
At the Black Chair Club, by the way.
And they're talking, and we're talking. The small talk goes, then they get into the guy that owes the money. And the guy starts talking about, he's with me, we want to pay, what can we do to pay it off? And whatever he said, Greg looked at him and says, Roy, the streets are ours. Roy, so, Greg, I'm not here to argue with that. Like, in other words, yeah, Greg,
wow.
Yes, that's what I said. But here's what Greg said. Greg says, no, Roy, I mean ours. We're friends. You're a friend of ours.
Oh,
the streets are ours.
He took it as Greg was saying it was his first.
Right. So I saw, and there were guys that Greg said, oh, that's a tough guy. Never said that about Roy or Tommy Karate or those really nutty guys.
Yeah.
Never even,
you guys got some cemeteries.
Well, but still, it's the way they do things.
No, I understand.
A lot of them,
mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, a lot of them, I mean, I know where Greg walked into a place, broad daylight, killed a guy, and another guy tried to intervene who wasn't even, and then just killed him too, because he was trying to get Greg's mask off. Middle of the day, okay? I'm trying to think of all the, just these guys, they'll lure you in.
Guys like Andy did things like that, suicide, missing daylight without masks on.
Yeah. No, those are the guys. I remember Greg saying when Frankie the Chico walked in our club one day and then left, and he told me who he was, and he said, "Frankie is a tough guy."
Yeah.
He knew tough guy. Sonny Francesi, he said it about him. He said it about there was another. Sally Albanese, an old time name.
Yeah, Sally, old time, even older than Greg.
Yep, he said that's a tough guy. There were others that, well, surprisingly, he didn't really overdo it. Like when you would talk about John.
Yeah, he didn't respect. He didn't really like. He didn't.
He said, John. Yeah, he said. I
Besides
remember him telling me.
Frankie,
He says,
no gave me respect. Not even guys like Joe Watts, he didn't give respect to.
Yeah, no, I don't know about that. I never really remember hearing that, but I remember him saying, John, with all these, he says, I was dressing like that in the 50s. You know? But, all of a sudden it's a big deal.
He didn't really respect the Gambinos too much, Craig. He didn't care.
Yeah. Yeah. But, no, I mean, he really marched to his own. They said he had a fiefdom. He was a little bit, if you remember the old way back in the 1500s where the castle, and then they gave landlords areas.
Yeah, like, noblemen.
And they were called serfs and fiefs.
Yeah.
If you were a fief, you had your own fiefdom within the kingdom. And that's what they said Greg had. If you understand the history.
Oh, I get it.
He had the fiefdom within the Colombo family.
Right. He had his own.
There wasn't, like the time, like the guy that he shot for calling him a rat right at the desk.
Yeah. Wow.
Now,
he was kidding.
Yeah, right. But a lot of guys might have just abused him, belittled him, said if you ever fuck.
That's a death sentence with anybody.
I know.
If it didn't happen that day, it was going to happen anyway.
Right. Unless, again, some guys might accept the formal apology. I was stupid. I was drunk. It'll never happen again. I'm just saying. But how many guys in front of a full club of people with the door open, people walking by in front of the place, we just pull the gun out and shoot them, have us roll them up in a rug, carry them out to the car in the middle of the day.
Well, one guy, but I don't want to talk about him. He wasn't a wise guy.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying he's the only one.
Nobody.
But when you go chopping up doesn't make you a better killer or a better mob enforcer. It's just a different thing. It's almost, it's like, Jeffrey Dahmer used to save, and then maybe that's what they were going to start doing, saving body parts in the freezer.
In a closer club, who knows?
Yeah. So.
Larry, listen,
we're going to do it again.
Yeah, listen. I just want to ask you one more question. I know you guys did the baseball hats, the cups in the front seat. When you got dressed every day to go out hunting, what'd you wear? Like, what was it? What'd you have on?
Jeans, sneakers, the bulletproof vest, without a doubt. A heavy sweatshirt on top of that. Just regular clothes that we blended in, almost like an undercover cop. But basically, the difference was the vest. Didn't leave home without a vest.
But everything else was a normal dress for back then.
Pretty much, yeah.
And local cops, just seeing you guys drive around, detectives, just never pulled you over.
Only when they had the task force and they were zeroing in on certain cars. But we changed our car every week.
That's just the Grim Reaper and Mazza driving.
Yeah. We changed the cars every week. The guys that were doing the serious surveillance weren't the blue and whites. They were task force along with the FBI. And we had the scanner, don't forget.
You know how busy Brooklyn is. You can't go around the block and it take 10 minutes. Brooklyn's a lot busier than the way Ozone Park and Out Beach. I mean, you guys, I tried to go 86th Street when you can't buy a pair of sneakers. When you double park, you get a ticket. You can't go around the block. I mean, you can't do anything. L&B, they give you a ticket these days.
Yeah.
You're going to get a slice.
We were doing surveillance. I sound like a cop. On, what do you call it?
At war.
What's his name? He's still out there today. Well, I won't say his name, but he's in trouble right now. And he was coming out of his house in the 11th Avenue area.
Yeah.
And he comes out and he pulls out. As we pull out to follow him, another car pulls out between us. So we're feds following him.
That's great.
So, but this happened.
Scanner at the time?
Yeah. What's that?
Did you have the scanner at the time to know that, or it just happened?
We probably had the scanner, but regardless, they pulled out. Maybe they weren't on the radio at the time.
That's great. Holy shit.
Yeah. And there was another time we pulled out to follow somebody, and somebody came shooting down the opposite side of the street the wrong way. And we had to back out.
No way. And they were feds?
Yeah. Feds or task force. Wow. One time me and Tommy Dave went side by side.
Very
it was happening a lot. Yeah. Yeah, so. Anyway.
That's incredible. Like, that's
Yeah.
just stories like that, because, like, I know, especially, you know, we had anti-crime, we had OCID. I did football left and right, and I was a low-level guy to that.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah, but
getting
listen,
money, so I got pulled
they
over
don't.
left and right.
Yeah, you might have considered yourself that. They don't consider anybody that's around. You know, I mean, they know you might not have been a boss or whatever, but
Yeah,
they
they felt like I was like,
they're not bashful.
and
They'll
I'm
take.
like, who the fuck am I?
Well, you were with somebody that's
Yeah,
serious. So
true. It's true. It's
right.
true. Larry, I mean, great conversation.
Listen,
I want to tell you one thing. Besides the bookmaking and Shylock, because I know you had money on the street. I know you had a bookmaking operation. I know all the gentlemen that bet with you, that was part of your book. Now, I didn't use any of that. I did go to college. I learned. I made sure I paid attention. Did any of that help you in the legitimate world? And just give us something positive for my supporters that they know what came out of all of this.
Well, definitely numbers is big. I'm quick with numbers, always was. That's big. But I'm going to be the biggest thing I've taken from the life I was in, because you see it even in the real world. Okay, you see it in Hollywood, you see it in corporations. The backstabbing is everywhere. Okay, it's not as dangerous. You're not really going to literally get a knife in your back or your throat cut, but they'll do it in other ways.
That's a great, 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 great thing to pass on to everybody.
Very true.
Life. Larry, thank you again. My best to your lovely wife, and I can't wait to see you when we have.
Thank you. You're going to see us soon. Believe me, I'll get in touch.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great one.
Pleasure.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.